Hey guys, I just wanted to continue this story of the divorce saga. So, as you recall, I'm allowed now to be in the home. I'm speaking, in present tense, but this happened years ago. But at this point, I'm allowed now to be in the home with the children and parent them freely. But there's also an order that says that I have private parenting time only on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays for a few block of hours. And that conundrum of a order that really doesn't make sense sort of became the crux of the whole situation that made life even more miserable for me, because my ex interpreted that order from the judge to mean that I can only have private time away from her with the children, or any kind of parenting time with the children where she's not chaperoning me on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. Meaning she interpreted that I can't take the children out to the store, I can't take them to Chuck E. Cheese or to Toys R Us or anything like that unless she is present. Otherwise, it has to be on a Tuesday, Thursday, or Sunday for those few short hours. And obviously that's, kind of a crazy situation. So, also I had to pay her $7,500 to reimburse her for retaining an attorney, which was another crazy situation that popped out of me, filing a motion just simply to gain access back to my home and back to my children. So it was very, very difficult. So I'm now in the home. She's still taunting me. She's still acting, irrational, still constant, nonstop arguing and following me around every square foot of the house. I basically could get no peace, myself and the children. But I'm playing it cool at this point, and what I do is that I'm there every single day. I come home from work, or I'm working there. But if I have a meeting, I come right back, parenting the children, cooking them dinners, bathing them, all the normal things that you would do when you're living in a home. But on those specific blocks of, say, a Tuesday and Thursday, I would take that time and go to family's house and bring the children around to family that they haven't seen for a while and stay with them there for a few hours, then come back home and things like that, just to get out of that household. Anything to get away for a few hours, I would do. But also at the same time, my ex is continuing the story to friends, family, neighbors, that I've abandoned the family. Now I know it sounds ridiculous what I'm saying, but I'm sure that some guys can understand and sympathize with me. But she's really spinning this really hardcore that he is horrible and he abandoned us. Meanwhile, I'm sitting right in the living room. It literally is that crazy. Okay, so that doesn't really mean anything what she's telling friends and families, but more importantly, she's building her case, because she has an attorney now. She's building her case of abandonment against me because we're gonna have to fight a custody battle. She's not willing to share 50% custody. I'm trying to talk to her, but every conversation is a moot conversation. She's not willing to entertain the concept of 50% custody because in her mind, I'm the one that wants a divorce, so therefore there's no way possible that I should be allowed to have 50% custody. That's how she was thinking. So I knew we weren't going to get anywhere. Now, another thing that I want to bring up from a legal standpoint, just so that everyone is aware, in New Jersey, there's a thing called a CNA. It's called a custody neutral assessment. Also, as part of that order, the judge ordered us to undergo a CNA, which is a custody neutral assessment. All it basically is that it's a 1-hour session with a therapist where he speaks to me alone, he speaks to her alone, and then he watches us interact with the children, and he tries to get a better understanding of what is the problem between these two that they can't get into. What is the problem between these two that they can't reasonably amongst themselves determine what kind of custody arrangement they have, or what kind of custody arrangement that they want. So the problem is that the custody neutral assessment costs about $2,000. And when you're going through a divorce, you have no money. And because she's playing hardball, she basically just blows off the custody neutral assessment and refuses to pay her half. We were each ordered to pay half of the cost. So 1,000 for me, 1,000 for her. She just neglects it and blows it off and acts like it was never ordered. And, you know, when you're dealing with a situation where you're in a divorce, everything costs money. So is it a situation where I'm going to file another motion against her to force the judge to make her pay the $1,000 for the custody neutral assessment, when meanwhile the act of filing a motion may cost me about $3,500 or $4,000. So it's all of those things that you have to worry about when you're in a contentious divorce. So because she's blowing off the custody neutral assessment, I basically had to come up with the money and pay her half and my half, and we go to this custody neutral assessment. So we meet with the therapist, and it's basically nothing. I go into the room first and I explain to him exactly what's going on in the household, how I'm there every day, but she keeps yelling and screaming in front of the children and putting on tantrums, saying that I abandoned the family. And she tells this to the children. There's really no other problem with me or with her. It's just a couple going through a divorce, and for some reason she's taking it very badly and is acting out. That's the honest truth of what's going on. And I show him copies of text messages on how she's constantly harassing me, sometimes sending me thousands of text messages every day throughout the day. I'm not making this stuff up. So I explain all of this to him, and he's like, yeah, it looks like she's just, having a hard time processing the divorce. These things happen. He kind of makes it sound very lighthearted. So then he has the children come in and watches how they interact with me, sees that there's no problem. Then he has her come in, I leave, and then he asks her, what's going on. I'm kind of listening in on the door, and I can hear her just running off, explaining all these things. He abandoned us. He left me, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't care. He doesn't love the children, all this kind of crazy stuff. I can't hear what he's telling her, but nonetheless, the result of his custody neutral assessment gets faxed to the court in a sealed record, where you can only see certain paragraphs of it. So the paragraphs that were released, that I was able to see, it made it clear that there's nothing wrong with the father. He works in the home. He's always been a committed father. There's nothing wrong with the mother. So he sees no reason why there can't be some sort of equal parenting share. And because of that, he then recommends our case to mediation. Now, mediation is just the informal meeting between both parties around a table, with or without attorney's presence, to try to hash out the divorce. But my ex is not interested in mediation. She's interested in dragging this out as long as possible, even going to a full trial if necessary, because you have to realize from her perspective, as despicable, as it may have been, everything was taken care of for her. She had her attorney retainer automatically paid, and she had a free ride of all monthly living expenses for the duration of the divorce, however long it takes. So with that understanding, it was in her best interest to have this situation play out and to drag her feet as long as possible. So she was not interested in mediation. So that never occurred. So she just continued living as normal and just not answering any correspondences and just letting it play out. I'm the one who was actively fighting for custody and a change and for relief. So there's really nothing for her to do. It's the ball's in my court to try to fight for these things, where she can just sit back and just watch the situation play out and continue to be hostile. That's the sad truth of the situation and how unequal it can be when you're dealing with a situation like that. So I'm really becoming frustrated with the situation. I'm still living in the household every day. There's things being thrown at me. I can see that the tension is building, not from me because I'm a very calm person, but from her. I can see that she's itching to try to start physical fights with me. And then it gets to the point, I don't know why I'm laughing because it's not funny. It gets to the point where it becomes even more difficult because she then moves her mother into the household. So now I'm fighting a front on both sides every day, where in my own home I have the ex who's constantly irrational and insane and yelling and screaming. The kids are suffering, witnessing this every day. Kids are locked in the bedroom with her for 20 hours a day. I can basically also during this time, my attorney is sending, letters, very stern letters over to her and to her attorney, urging her to stop her abusive behavior towards me. They kind of blow it off and they fire letters back explaining how, I've abandoned the household, just continuing the narrative that I've abandoned the household. I'm not really staying there because that's what she's telling her attorney, that he's lying to everybody. He doesn't really live there. He doesn't visit the children. He's not in the home with me while I'm physically there every day. So at this point, now also I have the added element of the mother-in-law now living in the home, who's adding to that stress and arguing and bickering with me, taking her daughter's side. So you can imagine how stressful that is. So at this point, I don't really see my case getting the traction that it should get. I don't feel that my attorney is really fighting for me because even when I speak to him, in small talk conversations, he's always telling me things like, yeah, it's hard out here for guys, and, you got to be thankful that you're not in a situation where you're locked up at the hands of a woman. I'm like, I don't want to hear any of that. The situation is critical for me as it is now. I'm not going to be thankful that I'm not in prison. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm trying to be an active father. So long story short, I realized that I'm going to have to get rid of this attorney and find a new attorney. So before then, what I start doing is I buy a GoPro camera and some audio recording devices, and I wear a GoPro camera strapped to my chest, and I also had some spy glasses with cameras on the lenses, and I'm wearing them every single day while living in the home with my ex while the craziness is going on. And I do that for a few months, and in that span I get rid of that attorney and hire a new attorney, and we formulate a new strategy, and I'll continue that in the next video.